be sustained if the people are organized and mobilized. Trade unions are critical in this endeavor. The ANC, as part of the alliance with organized labor, represented by COSATU, continues to be interested in the world of labor. We remain concerned about the world of work. We remain interested on the condition of work. We want to know whether mining companies are paying a living wage. We want to know whether there is adequate provision for houses for the workers and their families. It is impossible for us not to care about these issues affecting workers because the majority of our people are working class. Without thoroughgoing transformation of the lives of the working class, the promise of our democracy will not be fulfilled. The mine workers constitute that section of the working class that has carried the heaviest burden of exploitation and oppression. The force that has toiled and bled alongside the martyrs of our long struggle for liberation. We have always understood that the liberation struggle in South Africa, with the unique colonialism of a special type characterization, was not only about political liberation, but equally economic liberation. Political liberation will remain hollow liberty without fundamental economic transformation across race, gender, and class. Whilst the ANC remains a multi-class organization, our overwhelming bias leans towards the working class for the obvious reason that this constitutes the main motive force for change. That is where the ANC derives the largest share of its electoral mandate. Comrades, the history of NUM and the ANC is intertwined narrative of resistance and resilience, forged in the crucible of struggle. From the darkest days of apartheid, when the very existence of our people was under threat, NUM stood as a bulwark against oppression and the super exploitation of black workers. Describing the lives of black workers in 1914, Sol Plaatje, the first Secretary General of the ANC, recognized the seminal role of workers in our liberation struggle when he said, and I quote, 200,000 subterranean heroes who by day and by night, for a mere pittance, laid down their lives to the familiar fall of rock, and who at deep levels ranging from 1,000 to 3,000 feet in the bowels of the earth, sacrificed their lungs to the rock dust, which develops minus sepsis and pneumonia, close quote. From 1918, the ANC supported the strike by the African municipal, sanitary workers, and African mine workers. ANC leaders, AWG, Champion, and Selby Msimang worked with Clement Gadali in building the Industrial and Commercial Workers Union into a powerful force in the 1920s. The ANC was central to the formation of your predecessor, the African Mine Workers Union, in 1941. The Transvaal ANC Provincial Conference mandated the Provincial Executive Committee to convene a conference of mine workers to launch the union, the African Mine Workers Union, which elected J.P. Marx as its president. J.P. Marx later became the president of the Transvaal African National Congress. The historic 1946 African mine workers strike was the biggest industrial action by African workers ever to take place in South Africa. The strike shook the foundations of apartheid and gave momentum to the need for a strategic shift from passive resistance to mass mobilization and militant action. It is the mine workers who inspired the ANC Youth League to push for the adoption of the 1949 Program of Action by the African National Congress. The ANC was always influenced by mine workers. The ANC leaders and activists who were union members also played a central role in the formation of the South African Congress of Trade Unions, SACTU, in 1955, the formation of Umkhonto weSizwe in 1961 and subsequent armed struggle, the revival of progressive trade unions in the 1970s and the formation of COSATU in 1985, and the subsequent adoption of the Freedom Charter by the Federation in 1987, and growth of the public sector unions. The ANC's work among trade unions has always been guided by the evolution of its strategy and tactics. The working class is the primary motive force of the National Democratic Revolution, and workers who are organized and politically conscious constitute a key detachment of the working class. Accordingly, SACTU and COSATU became strategic allies of the ANC, born out of this collective theorization of the role and place of workers in the National Democratic Revolution. The progressive trade union movement has been a key component of the mass democratic movement, which mobilized various sectors of society to render South Africa ungovernable and make apartheid unworkable. In response to President Oliver Tambo's clarion call, many union leaders and members made supreme sacrifices for the freedom and rights enjoyed by many workers today. Many were jailed, some were murdered, and others joined the movement in exile. After the formation of the NUM in 1982, as a successor and inheritor of the militant traditions of the African Mine Workers Union, it is the NUM and the UDF aligned trade unions that shaped the labor movement's ideological attitudes and subsequently led to the adoption of the Freedom Charter by COSATU. Comrades and compatriots, we are here to thank the mine workers for contributing to the many phases of our struggle from the 1940s to this day. We come from far, and a tortuous path we are yet to traverse remains ahead of us. Until the NDR reaches its logical conclusion, we will not turn our back on you. We will not turn our back on the alliance. This Congress takes place against the backdrop of sharpening contradictions, both internationally and locally, characterized by dramatic shifts in the political landscape. On the domestic front, the electoral outcomes of 2024 national and provincial elections plunged the movement into uncharted waters, characterized by the National Executive Committee as a strategic setback for the National Democratic Revolution, and characterized by the president of NUM as a loss. Despite this, Congress, as the party with the largest votes, the ANC seized both the tactical and strategic initiative and started shaping a narrative about the need for us to secure political power and not sit on the sidelines. We came with the idea that all political parties must work together and voluntarily cooperate in setting up an inclusive, viable, and stable government of national unity. We didn't choose two political parties, because if we chose two political parties, which the president talks about, it will not be GNU. It will be something else called maybe the coming together of two political parties. We did this not because we are cowards or sellouts. Any serious revolutionary understands that there are moments when we have to take tactical measures to open space for the revolution to recover from a major setback. The GNU must be understood in this context. Our strategy for the realization of the NDR has not changed, but the tactics to change based on the material conditions occasioned by the outcome of the 2024 elections. We no longer have 50% majority, but we remain in control of government, and we will not retreat from pushing forward the National Democratic Revolution. There is no better demonstration of our ability to forge ahead with our manifesto commitments despite the changed political landscape than the promulgation of critical transformation laws in the form of the National Health Insurance Act, the Basic Education Laws Amendment Act, and the Expropriation Act. The 2024 movement has brought to the fore stark contradictions, both within the alliance and society in general. Like any living organism, our alliance is dynamic, constituted by 4 independent allies. Even though we share common perspectives on the NTR, we will always have differences on tactics. However, we are all committed to the unity and cohesion of the alliance. We are engaged in deliberations aimed at strengthening the alliance, which include discussions on the reconfiguration of the alliance and to seek the most optimal way to ensure effectiveness of the alliance on the political programs of the movement. Yesterday, we had a bilateral with the SACP. We discussed the challenges of the moment. There are a number of challenges that demand that we close ranks. We agreed that we should continue to find ways to strengthen our relationship, to confront problems together, and to listen to each other as allies. Our shared history is a testament to the power of unity and the unwavering commitment to the National Democratic Revolution. In moments of national crisis, this relationship has been a reliable source of strength, direction, and unwavering support. As we look to the future, we must harness this legacy, draw strength from our shared experiences, and use them to drive progress and transformation, ensuring that the sacrifices of the past are not in vain, and that the promise of a better future is realized for all. The geopolitical landscape is experiencing tectonic shifts with the rise of the ultra-right governments with fascist characteristics, hell-bent in reasserting racist tendencies of yesteryear. These are the authors of neocolonialism and modern-day imperialism, steeped in entrenching racial inequality and disdain for human solidarity, steeped in warmongering and ethnic cleansing. These developments are fueled by a new wave of disinformation that has replaced diplomacy and intelligence, underpinned by unbridled greed and pursuit of commercial interests at all costs. We unequivocally pledged our solidarity with the people of Palestine and took the unprecedented step to haul the apartheid Israel regime before the International Court of Justice, to be held accountable for its actions in Gaza and against the people of Palestine at large. History has no blank checks or blank pages. The world will not forget that the United States has used its veto power in the United Nations Security Council 48 times over the decades to block any attempt to hold Israel accountable for its illegal actions and violations of international law. The hypocrisy and double standards of those who wield their veto power as a weapon to allow Israel to commit unspeakable atrocities with impunity, while others must be held accountable for the same or lesser atrocities. Our deep bonds of solidarity with those that remain oppressed were forged in the furnaces of our shared struggles, from Palestine to Western Sahara. Despite pressures exerted on us by those who seek to impose their will on our sovereign state, we dare not falter in our duty to advance a better Africa and a better world, where peaceful coexistence of nations respecting each other's sovereignty in a multipolar and rules-based world order, which is underpinned by adherence by all nations to multilateralism as opposed to unilateralism. As we navigate the complexities of the 21st century, the working class remains central to driving a forward momentum. and shaping the future of our nation. The ANC strategy and tactics document asserts that, I quote, the working class remain the leading force in the struggle for social transformation, close quote, reminding us that our struggle is not merely a historical artifact, but a living and evolving project. However, we must acknowledge the strategic shifts that have impacted our economy. The mining sector, once a dominant force, has seen a fluctuating yet overall significant contribution to our gross domestic product. According to recent reports, the South African mining industry contributed 6% of the country's total nominal GDP during the first 3 quarters of last year. While this represents a slight decrease from the 7.3% in 2022, it still underscores the sector's vital role. Additionally, mining weekly also reflected during the third quarter of last year. The sector employed 4.5% of the country's total workforce. This indicates that the sector is still a major employer, providing livelihoods and sustaining communities. However, we must also recognize the challenges facing the mining sector, including logistical constraints, electricity supply issues,